This broadcast is sponsored in part by Hendrick Automotive Group. WBTV News starts right now with breaking news.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. I'm Abby Tedros. That breaking news coming out of Stanley County, where one student has tested positive for coronavirus. Stanley County's interim superintendent says the student quarantined before Labor Day due to a close contact in the community. The student later developed symptoms and tested positive. Once they tested positive, they did not return to school. This coming as Julie Davis, a third grade teacher at Norwood Elementary School, passed away yesterday after battling the virus. The superintendent says Mrs. Davis and the student never had close contact with each other. In fact, they were in separate buildings. WBTV's Chandler Morgan is working the story for us today. She spoke with family and a former principal who worked with Mrs. Davis. And more breaking news at noon for you. White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany tested positive for COVID-19. She made the announcement on Twitter about 30 minutes ago. McEnany said that she tested positive this morning while experiencing no symptoms. She also said that no reporter, producer, or members of the press are listed as close contacts by the White House Medical Unit. She says she will begin the quarantine process and continue to work remotely. And right now in York County, deputies are working to bring home a missing man. Ronald Honeycutt II was last seen on September 25th when he borrowed his father's silver Chevrolet truck. Honeycutt was supposed to return the truck the following Monday, but did not. His father says he talks to Honeycutt often, but has not been able to reach him. If you have any information on where he may be, you are asked to contact Crime Stoppers. And turning to your election coverage, we are 29 days out from Election Day, and WBTV is on your side. We have team coverage this afternoon. Our Paige Peroso will join us live to talk about a busy election season in North Carolina. But first, let's turn to Sharon Hayes. Sharon, voters in South Carolina can vote absentee in person starting today.
Yes, that is correct, Abby. Good afternoon. So there are three ways that you can vote here in South Carolina. Of course, that's absentee by mail, absentee in person, and then, of course, in person at your polling place on Election Day. But there are some changes here in the state that you're going to want to have to know about. Among them, any registered voters can vote absentee and use the state of emergency reason due to the coronavirus pandemic. Also, if you're voting absentee, make sure you're signing that voter's oath. That's very important. But at this time, you do not need a witness signature on your absentee return envelope for your ballot to count. Now, some key dates to remember if you're voting absentee. Applications must be received by the voter registration office by 5 p.m. on October 24th, unless you are an authorized representative for someone. In that case, you have until 5 p.m. on October 30th. Now, you can vote absentee in person through November 2nd. Your ballot just has to be turned in by 5 p.m. that day. Now, I spoke to one voter, Norm Zimmer, who actually voted at the Lancaster County Administration Building. He was checking on this particular location for his wife, and he said he has had a seamless process today, and it's the same for other people he spoke to.
A lot of people there, but there was no lines. It was in and out, excuse me, real quick. It probably took me 10 minutes tops. And they give you like a Q-tip to touch the screen. Like I said, piece of cake, no problems. Just do it. Just vote, man.
Now, you can check the status of your absentee ballot by visiting scvotes.gov. But meanwhile, while in-person absentee ballots can be turned in today in South Carolina, it's still been a very busy election season for North Carolina as well. I want to turn it over to Paige Peroso. Paige, what are some of the things offices are dealing with there?
Well, like you said, the major difference this year is just the sheer amount of people coming to drop off their absentee ballots here at the Board of Elections office across North Carolina. Here in Mecklenburg County, they tell me they've sent out more than 3 times absentee voting this year compared to previous years, and they've hired more election staff to help with the crowds who are here dropping off their ballots. Now, the Board of Elections office here in Mecklenburg County says to be patient when coming in to drop off your vote. To keep votes secure, you you have to fill out a form confirming you're turning in your own ballot. This takes a few minutes for an election staff member to process the form, but it's another step to keep elections secure. Another important thing to double check before you cast your ballot, make sure you follow the directions. This year is the first time many are absentee voting, so make sure you fill out the form on the return envelope as well. That's a common problem the Mecklenburg County Board of Elections office is seeing. Now, coming up tonight on WBTV, we're talking to voters about the process and more of what you can expect if you plan to absentee vote this election year. For now, in Charlotte, I'm Paige Peroso, WBTV on your side.
All right, thank you, Paige. And here are more key dates that you need to know before voting in the Carolinas. The deadline to vote by mail in South Carolina is today. The deadline to register to vote in North Carolina is Friday, October 9th, and the deadline to vote early voting in North Carolina is next Thursday, the 15th. And as always, WBTV is on your side, helping guide you through this election. When we are not on air, we have plenty of tools online to answer any of your questions. All you have to do is head to WBTV.com/election. And you'll find requirements, deadlines, voting sites, and safety precautions being taken in both of the Carolinas. Time right now is 12:06 on your Monday. Taking a live look over uptown Charlotte this afternoon. It is a gorgeous view and the weather is great as well. Just an extension from the weekend. For more on the forecast, let's bring in First Alert meteorologist Jonathan Stacy.
And perhaps if you're a fan of warmer temperatures, it really gets better from here as temperatures rise above normal today going into Tuesday and Wednesday. Good afternoon to you, everybody. We are flirting with 70 degrees, but not quite there just yet. We're at 69 degrees at Charlotte Douglas International. Temperatures will continue to climb throughout the afternoon hours. You see it right there on your screen. An average high this year should be around 75 degrees. Bingo, that's where we'll be at 4 o'clock. And throughout the late evening hours, temperatures will start to drift back into the 60s and ultimately into the 50s. Overnight, yep, pretty calm, relatively calm, not as cool as last night, but the sunshine is sustained, at least for the first part of this week. We do have some tropical troubles. I got to tell you about the latest tropical storm to develop. Tropical Storm Delta is expected to make a pass through the Carolinas, bringing the sunny streak to an end. We'll tell you about that ahead in just a few minutes. Abby?
Thank you, Jonathan. Charlotte City Council is meeting all day to find a consensus on a number of key priorities, including how to spend CARES Act funds and oversight for CMPD. The marathon session started at 8 this morning, and covering it all day for us is WBTV investigative reporter David Hodges. David, what stuck out to you so far?
Well, as almost any government meeting these days, anything related to COVID-19 is a big talking point. Right now, they're actually talking about what to do with CARES Act funds. The city is using $76.5 million from the federal government to help the community and the neighborhood survive and recover from COVID-19. A lot of those funds include grants to businesses, both on the front end and the back end on how to recover. The city has $14.5 million to still figure out what to do with before the end of the year when the federal government gets that money back if it's not spent. City Manager Marcus Jones just talked about giving $3 million of those dollars to hotels and motels that are struggling during this time, and also giving millions of dollars to nonprofits that are struggling to get donations during the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, the City Council only has a limited amount of time to figure out what to do with this money and spend it before the federal government comes calling to get that money back. So the clock is really ticking on them right now.
And David, is there anything else that city leaders are scheduled to discuss today that we should be looking out for?
Yes, this afternoon there's actually a big discussion regarding CMPD and violence prevention, some things that we've been covering here on WBTV, including some council members seeking to get an external audit of CMPD. Some council members are pushing back against that, saying they need more specifics instead of a big general audit. Also, possibly some reforms that are going to be discussed about how police officers would be looked into from the Civil Service Board and the direction that an investigation like that would take. That is going to be a discussion from 1 to 5 this afternoon, so a lot of talking points that I'll be listening in on and have a report for you guys later on WBTV. Back to you.
Lots to cover. Thank you, David. President Trump could be discharged from Walter Reed Medical Center as soon as today. The White House physician says that the president's condition continues to improve. Yesterday, the president took an unannounced drive past supporters near the hospital. Hours earlier, the president's medical team reported his blood oxygen level dropped to concerning levels twice in recent days. Just hours before the president was diagnosed with COVID-19, he attended a campaign fundraiser at his New Jersey golf club. and health officials are contacting more than 200 attendees and event employees in order to track a possible virus spread. North Carolina U.S. Senator Thom Tillis says he tested positive for coronavirus after attending the Supreme Court nomination ceremony at the White House for Amy Coney Barrett last week. In an update on Twitter, he said that he's continuing to isolate at home and is feeling well. His mild symptoms have, quote, significantly improved, but he still has a loss of taste and smell. He went on to say that he and his wife are grateful for the prayers and well wishes they've received. And kids have been back in the class for almost 2 months now, and today U.S. Education Secretary Betsy DeVos is making her way to our area to talk about safely reopening schools during the pandemic. DeVos and Representative Virginia Foxx will host 2 roundtable discussions in Hickory and Gastonia. The first stop is Jenkins Elementary School at 2:30 this afternoon. The 2 will then make their way to Piedmont Community Charter School's high school campus to talk to North Carolina education teachers and parents and school administrators as well. Still to come on WBTV News at noon, Halloween is just weeks away and it may look different this year. It will look different this year because of the pandemic. How Airbnb is working to stop the spread of coronavirus.